the Anti-Graft agency, the lead of them all, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, that is, it's been 20 years since this agency came on board. And since that time, it has had a handful of chairmen, starting from the pioneer chairman, now the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu. Today we have a lawyer, someone who we are told has a wealth of experience under his belt as a regulatory compliance professional. He's been in the saddle for a little over a year, but now the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is telling us that there's a report covering the first 1 year of this gentleman in office and the accomplishments he has recorded in the period under review. But the EFCC is not just an agency you want to look at from the prism of the last 1 year of Mr. Olukoyede in office, because it's been 2 decades, like I already mentioned. Therefore, the questions, for example, would be, can we confidently and categorically say that the EFCC's mandate has been in tandem with the results the Commission has accomplished so far? Are Nigerians increasingly becoming more confident in the EFCC? All right. Has the EFCC been able to deliver the goods, so to speak, within the ambit of its own mandates? Because in recent times, we've seen even concerns around whether the EFCC or not is a legal entity. And the interesting element in this conversation is that we have a bunch of governors who are pushing this narrative to the extent of even resulting to litigation in this regard. I'm joined by a gentleman, Sisu Deshiks, who will help us, by the way, political analysts, to find some sense in this conversation, because one of the challenges many presidents will agree that Nigeria deals with as a country is the fight against graft. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning.
All right, so let's begin with a look at the EFCC beyond Mr. Olukoyede. When you look at the commission, you look at its mandates and how far it has come. What exactly is your assessment?
The EFCC thus far, there's been a mix of success and setbacks, because in the last 20 years of its creation, we've had successive leadership. And this goes down to the fact that it depends on who mans the agency, because we have seen a situation where people on the saddle of that leadership are given the mandate, but then little or nothing is done. So far, I rate the present EFCC chairman because I believe he has the knowledge, because he's been in the system for quite some time now. And I give credit to the pioneer chairman, now the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu. The EFCC is an agency that a whole lot has been said about it, because that's without the interest that we see here in this part of the world, because sometimes these agencies are criticized not because they are not performing their duty, but because perhaps sometimes they've stepped on toes, and because of the attitude in us as a people. You see people doing things not because they are doing it for nationalism, but because they are doing it because it affects them. Just like it's a well-known fact, crime is pardoned when you're not the offender. And of course, when you're affected, you see it as witch hunt. So most of these cases we hear people addressing on national TV, newspaper, and every platform. It's as a result of some people being dissatisfied with the system for personal gains.
Interesting. The EFCC, like you mentioned, has been here for like 2 decades, and it has seen a chunk of criticism and lambasting, whether on television or across social media platforms, for example. I mean, cast your mind back to the days of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. You have people who did say, some of them maybe even believed, that the EFCC was nothing better than an entity for, well, hounding those who are perceived as political opponents and all of that, even in the days of former chairman, the pioneer chairman Nuhu Ribadu, and all of that. Now, not much has changed in that regard. My question is, would you say, from what you know, from your assessments and analysis of reality, that the EFCC, Nigerians are now more confident in the EFCC than maybe a few years ago?
Well, I think there's a change in what used to be, because when the EFCC was first set in place, of course, a lot of us had our own fears, because it was more of an agency by the then government of President Olusegun Obasanjo in quote.
Right.
I am not saying that's my own opinion, but because that's what was popularly known, because it was perceived as an agency of government that was meant to silence the opposition. Of course, we saw how it panned out between former President Atiku Abubakar and the rest of them. So by and large, there's been success. I am not one of those that believe the EFCC alone can achieve it, because we are in a country where this need for attitudinal change. Change, like they say, begins with you and I. Of course, the EFCC given the mandate to interrogate these issues of financial crime, they still need the support of the masses to achieve that. Without you and I supporting the FCC, there's little or nothing they can do. No matter how good intention who mans the agency has, whatever you come to the table with, it depends on who is working with you. And of course, this is something that requires all hands on deck. You agree with me, the EFCC is manned by a chairman. And under that chairman, you have some other subordinates working with the chairman. Of course, there are some units in the EFCC, which I believe some are saddled with the responsibility of interrogating crime, where others are saddled with the responsibility of prosecution. So the EFCC is an entity that a whole lot has been done under the years in review. But going forward, I would advocate that if for us to achieve success in this agency, like we've always wanted or always wished for, it's not something that should be left for them to handle alone. Because now I see crime. I'm supposed there was a whistleblower policy of the last administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. How far that went, I think it remains in the history. But how do we rewrite the history? Rewriting the history now requires us doing new things, because like I've always said, attitudinal change is what's missing here. Because I am always for myself, not for Nigeria. I am always for my family, not for Nigeria. And with that kind of attitude, even if crime is being done by someone close to me, and I have the information to feed the agency with to act in order to bring sanity to our polity, of course, I will keep that within me, because I am, first of all, looking at the relationship. But like the symbol of justice, you know, it's blindfolded. It knows no relation. So these are things I think we should activate in order to boost the EFCC in its operations.
Right. There has also been the criticism of the EFCC. Some people saying that, look, for the most part, the commission just focuses on internet fraudsters, the ones popularly called Yahoo boys, instead of taking the fight, so to speak, to politically exposed people. Do you think that position is correct?
Well, I think to a large extent, because I've seen cases where most of these politically exposed persons in quote are reported to have committed some infractions against the state. And the EFCC that is supposed to carry on with such matters in order to apprehend, in order to prosecute, in order to serve as deterrent to the would-be, so to say, because I am very mindful of my choice of words, because every Nigerian, I think there's this tendency in us, we only complain when the system does not suit us. And I tell you for free, every one of us is just not perfect, because the opportunity has not been there. It's only when the opportunity avails itself that you can tell who this person is. So somehow at some point I was actually worried, because we've had more of internet fraudsters being prosecuted, being paraded as the people committing crime. But the law establishing EFCC was never set for such purposes. But of course, it's all encompassing. It deals with issues of financial crime. Most of the politically exposed persons, do I say they have the way without to stampede justice? Because we've had reports of people bribing their way through EFCC in order not to account. Because today, I am not holding brief for the Yahoo boys. Of course, I also frown at that, because I have to be emphatic. Because when I mentioned this agency being established for the purpose of bringing sanity to our polity, Some persons out there might misinterpret what I meant. So it's just to put clarity to that. So as I was saying, the EFCC has a lot to do. The issue of financial crime, internet fraud, and the rest of it. I'll give you an example. I traveled home. I think it's still within the scope of its operations because it deals with financial crime. Financial crimes is not only limited to politically exposed persons, because why sometimes the EFCC is criticized is because people are of this opinion that the EFCC, the law establishing that agency, it was meant to go after politicians, and that is a very wrong notion. I think I disagree with that. The EFCC has the mandate, they have the powers to prosecute whoever commits some financial crimes.
Within its mandate?
Within its mandate. And I can tell you, the attitude or the present day crop of youngsters that we see engaged in this internet fraud that we talk about, it's a dent on our image as a people. I traveled down my state. I was in my state capital, and I lamented the increase in the cost of rent, because this is a state capital that is not economically viable. I'm talking about Makurdi. So while in the state, I took some time, because I'm one man that likes to be abreast of happenings around him, and I want to know what really is the expectation of the people. So sometimes I believe in my own private capacity, I am offering service to the people. So I engage in acts like that to have first-hand information in order to balance whatever discussion pops up. So I was taken aback when I had the humongous amount of money that are being pegged for rent in my state capital, and then I begin to interrogate. I was shocked to realize that there's this influx of these Yahoo boys we talk about, and there's this modus operandi that's adopted by them. They are living large, they do things, they are not the type that bargain for anything. So it gives confidence to whoever deals with them, and then that has become a standard that the community want to set before every other young person out there. So the issue is quite worrisome. I'll be giving EFCC a pass mark on that, because I think it's an embarrassment. It's a national embarrassment, because I believe for my own generation, while growing up, we were told of hard work. And what's hard work? Hard work is not just you going to the farm like it is commonly known in my place. You know, agriculture is a form of livelihood. Hard work entails you doing what's right to earn legitimately. But these youngsters are engaged in internet fraud. They want to reap where they did not sow, and it's becoming a national embarrassment. The EFCC has been head on this issue, and the more they do, the more you see it coming up from all parts of this country. So the EFCC, to me, acting on such information available to them to apprehend the Yahoo boys, it's in line with their operations.
Let's talk about the issue of SOP, Standard Operating Procedure.
Sure.
We read in the papers time and again of how that the EFCC and its agents have been accused of not following standard procedure in terms of following through with a lead or intel, as they call it. For example, we heard of cases where nightclubs, hotels, even private residences were barged into. In some of these cases, we're told without warrant of arrest and what have you. For an agency like the EFCC that is right on in the forefront of fighting graft, how much does that rub off negatively on its image?
I think that, with the greatest respect to the EFCC, that to me amounts to rascality. Rascality in the sense that it doesn't go well with any business entity, because when you raid an organization, it sends bad signal. Yes, I know most of the times they act on information or intel available to them, but to me, I think there should be some better ways of addressing issues, because, for instance, if you and I are in a nightclub and then we see raid, I might not just be one of those targets, but unfortunately, maybe I get caught in the web and then I become a victim, and then I just start trying to clean my image. which to me it's not the right way of engaging, because that's not what the mandate of EFCC should be. This is an agency that it is expected that they do due diligence. You don't just act on information available to you and then you use a firefighting approach. That to me is firefighting approach, because if proper investigation is carried out, you don't need to engage in that show of shame. Yes, a show of shame or showmanship, as it were, because sometimes they are also under pressure, because a lot of people criticize their actions or operations, and then they are just trying to fit in, trying to give that impression that, of course,
we're working
up to their game. So they engage in acts that are really not noble of such an agency that reflects the true identity of a nation that wants sanity.
All right, we're taking a break quickly, everyone. This conversation is getting a bit more expanded, but when we return, we'll look at the new phase where the EFCC has found itself now, with people now raising questions as to the legitimacy and legality or otherwise of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. That and more after this break. Do stay with us. For the first time in the history of the EFCC, we're now seeing, just this year, for example, people, particularly those within the space of politics, now saying, hold on a second, is the EFCC even legal in the first instance? Is it supposed to be in place? All right. I don't think that 7 governors are part of this bunch, for instance. How much does that worry you?
Well, it's a great disservice to our state, Nigeria, because for every public officer, you saw an oath to protect the sanity of the society. You have a mandate to do right by your country, Nigeria. So when you're a privileged person, that's not an advantage for you to misbehave. The governors enjoy immunity. That immunity, it's a clog in the wheel of progress if you are talking about purging the society of ills, because the governors act like they're above the law, you know, because they enjoy immunity. And that's why I've never supported the call for the creation of state police, because I know these governors, some of these governors are just power drunk. They will use it to their advantage to oppress opponents. And that is why you see some of their actions showing what they really are, because a man given power believes he's got it all on earth, and then he can do anything and get away with it. Even established agencies of government that are saddled with the responsibility of service in whatever capacity, like the AFCs, for instance, you see these governors acting like they are not working side by side for the collective good of the country. Every agency of government has a responsibility, and there's no one size fits all. The governors cannot, in their respective states, act like, okay, the problem in KB is same as that in Rivers. So the EFCC, of course, being a national agency, their level of operation allows for, even in interstate operations, they can move from here to do wherever they want. But sometimes this meets a stiff resistance from the state executive officers of the state, which is quite worrisome, because we are talking about building a nation. If we want to build a nation, I should be concerned. It should not just be the responsibility of those that are elected. Yes, I gave you the mandate because we all cannot be leaders at the same time. But there's this that is expected of me to contribute. So how well have I done that, or how am I going about it to contribute my own quota to the growth of my country? It's not just about me making demands, clamoring for good governance, calling for reforms and all that. All of these are good intentions of a successful government, but this is not without your input and my input. So the governors sometimes is because they act they assume they have the mandate, they have the support of the people, and then they act, even when that is against the people whose mandate you've taken to represent and do right by their interest. So not all of the, in fact, sometimes, yes, I also must emphasize this. Sometimes the governors, maybe because there's this fallout between the subnational and the government at the center, and sometimes it's unjustly carried out by, the actions are unjustly carried out by the institution of state against the subnationals. So in some cases, the subnationals act within their right to safeguard the sanity of the state, and then of course their personal interest too.
There are people who argue now, maybe that has been here for a couple of years, that there's an overlap between the EFCC and the ICPC. Therefore, they are calling for a merger, and the Orosaya report has recommended something along that line. So would it make any sense, whether political, economic, or social, if you were to merge both agencies?
My brother, you see, we talk about cutting cost of governance.
Right.
Without sounding modest, I must also admit that it seems we are still not serious about what we want. Because there is this multiplication of agencies. You have most of these government agencies duplicated. Why do you have Efcc and ICPC at the same time? To me, that doesn't make sense. It's as good as I'm going down there, then I still turn back. Come on, how is that fighting crime? The EFCC will make some progress. The ICPC on the other side is also trying to take credit for its operations, and then instead of being a sister agency that collaborates for the good of all, there's this clash of interest because everybody wants to take the credit. And for me, the running of these two agencies with such drama that we've seen, it calls for serious concern, because in the first place, there shouldn't even be two sister agencies that perform almost same roles. Because the EFCC, like the ICPC, to me, they are doing the same thing. So I don't even see any reason why you should have these two agencies exist in isolation. They should be merged. There should be a merger, because it's waste of resources, and then it stands in the way of progress when either of the two is trying to fight crime. Because if, for instance, ICPC has its report, the FCC is coming with its report, so which are we going to deal with?
Well, again, the EFCC doesn't look like it's going to go away anytime soon. But in what more ways can the EFCC be strengthened in light of its mandate so that it becomes more robust, vibrant, and effective?
Well, the EFCC, like other agencies, or like there should be a system upgrade for the EFCC personnel. For EFCC to function optimally and to act in line with the law establishing it, because it was created for a purpose. I want to believe, yes, there's no institution anywhere that trains EFCC personnel. If there's any, I stand to be corrected. Do we have any? EFCC, I believe, are personnel that are picked from the Nigerian police, or perhaps maybe some other law enforcement agencies, to form a group. These people need to be properly trained to deal with this. This is like a special need to deal with such matters. A situation where you have the orientation given to a police personnel is to deal with civil matters is quite different from issues of financial crime. These two things are not same. So if we want to get it right, the EFCC, as a matter of fact, should be an institution. Like you have the police academy, you have the Nigerian Defense Academy, and the rest of it, where personnel are given proper training to function in line with their mandate. Because most of these dramas, you see, it's full of drama. We are seeing drama where governors, ex-governors, so to say, there's been this back and forth. We've had stories where people were invited, people evade service, and the rest of it. And then you expect that that is corrected, and then it happens yet and again. So that tells you that something needs to be done. I'll be calling on the government, because this to me is very critical. The government should think about this. Establish an institution that trains these people, the EFCC personnel. It's not just about, even in the police, you have different units. You have anti-court unit. You have I think anti-bomb squad, whatever, and then you still have the investigators.
In fact, the police within it also have the anti-fraud unit.
Sure.
So that said, we're saying the EFCC come under fire, so to speak, with regards to what some persons have called shoddy investigation, leading to what we popularly refer to as media trial. In certain cases, we're seeing judges lambast EFCC counsel, saying that you didn't do a thorough job with your investigation, therefore we throw your case out. This is in the courts in the 21st century. We've seen that happen. Conversely, however, we've also heard some people say, look, you can't blame the EFCC all the way, that the judiciary in itself has not been giving the EFCC as much support as it should. And that's why you see people who are otherwise criminal in their practice and conduct can find a way to slip through the fingers, so to say, of the law. So can we paint some of this blame of, as it were, the inefficiency of the EFCC on the judiciary?
The judiciary takes a bulk of the blame, because the judiciary over time has proven, because we've seen where courts of competent jurisdiction acting at cross purposes. For instance, the matter before the court of same jurisdiction, but different division. People can run to any division to get injunction, to get judgment, and then these are courts that they perform same roles. So the judiciary, it's good you came up with this conversation. The judiciary, as it is expected to be the last hope of the common man, it's not even doing well. It is not doing what they're supposed to do to solve the problems. Because if the judiciary is up and doing, most of these embarrassments that you hear, or you see these media trials, of course, the EFCC cannot be absorbed of that allegation of media trial. We've seen that, because it's more of trying people on the pages of newspaper, on the internet, and then when it gets to the court of law that is saddled with the responsibility to do that, there's nothing tangible to present before the law that nails this perpetrator of such financial crimes. So the EFCC, in order to get it right, I think there should be a collaboration between the EFCC and the judiciary, because the judiciary are human. The personnel working in the judiciary are also human, and that's not taking away the fact that sometimes our minds are corrupt. I'm not saying the judiciary is corrupt. I'm only saying, because we've seen instances, we've seen cases where you expect that a matter that has been taken to court, that you so much envisage, and of course you're believing convincingly that justice will be served, and then you're shocked at the verdict that is given. You'll be like, come on, is this to encourage crime? How does this serve as deterrent? So the judiciary, to me, it's one agency of government. Of course, it's another arm of government that needs thorough investigation, that needs to purge itself of the rot in it. There's no denying that, because we've heard funny judgments, we've seen crazy cases and all that, and then you see judges of equal ranks, judges of same jurisdiction, acting as though one serves better or one is higher and above the other. So with such practice, it's as good as we are just not making progress. We are just recycling some of these things. They are better said and not acted on.
Interesting. I would like to say a big thank you to you for coming on the program this morning to also share your point of views with us on these very topical issues.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break, everyone. When we return, Queen Agaba and I will end the program on this